I shoved the last lens cap into my camera bag and checked my phone. 8 missed calls from my landlord. My chest tightened before I even opened the voicemail. Final notice. Pay by midnight or locks change tomorrow. Wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. I'd been so focused on shooting the gallery opening that I hadn't thought about anything else. The curator had promised payment on delivery of the photos, but on delivery apparently meant whenever we feel like processing it, and I'd been waiting 3 weeks. Freelance photography doesn't pay enough to cover bad luck. Maya stirred against my shoulder, her curly blonde hair damp with sweat from being carried too long. Mama, where are we going? Somewhere dry, baby. Just for a little while. Outside the gallery's glass doors, rain hammered the pavement in sheets. Not the light drizzle that had been falling when we arrived 4 hours ago, but the kind of downpour that floods subway stations and sends everyone running for cover. The kind that makes even the buses skip stops. I pulled out my wallet and counted what was left after this week's groceries and Maya's asthma medication refill. $37. The rent was $1,200. I didn't have it. Wouldn't have it unless the gallery paid tomorrow, which seemed as likely as the rain stopping in the next 5 minutes. Mama. Maya's voice was barely a whisper. She'd been so good tonight, sitting quietly in the corner while I worked, entertaining herself with the coloring book and broken crayons I'd brought. She was always good, my girl. Too good for a 5-year-old who should be tucked into bed, not standing in a gallery lobby at 10 p.m. on a Tuesday night. Let's find somewhere warm, I said, forcing brightness into my voice. Just until the storm passes. The lie sat heavy on my tongue. The weather app showed another 3 hours of this deluge minimum. And I had nowhere to go after that anyway. Across the street, a diner glowed like a beacon. The kind of place with cracked vinyl booths and faded linoleum, where truckers and night shift workers nursed endless cups of coffee. The kind of place that wouldn't kick us out for nursing a single order of toast for an hour. The diner was nearly empty when I pushed through the door, Maya heavy in my arms. Warmth hit my face along with the smell of burnt coffee and frying eggs. A waitress with tired eyes glanced up from behind the counter, then went back to refilling sugar dispensers. One booth near the back window had a single occupant, a man in a dark suit, perfectly tailored, reading what looked like a leather-bound ledger. An untouched cup of coffee sat cooling beside him. He looked completely out of place, like a piece of expensive art someone had accidentally left in a thrift store. Desperation erases pride. I'd learned that lesson the hard way, over and over. I approached his table, rain still dripping from my oversized sweater onto the floor. Excuse me. I'm sorry to bother you, but would you mind if we sat here? Just until the storm passes. Everywhere else is. I trailed off, realizing the diner was half empty. The lie died on my lips. He looked up, and I found myself caught by eyes so dark they were almost black. Not cold, but intense, like expensive whiskey held up to firelight. His face was all sharp angles and controlled power. Chiseled jaw, straight nose, high cheekbones that suggested Italian heritage. A short-groomed beard framed his mouth. No smile, no expression at all, just masculine beauty that belonged in a different world than this. Not in a rundown diner at 10 p.m. He was younger than I'd expected. Early 30s, maybe. Tall, even sitting down easily over 6 feet, with the kind of lean, dangerous build that came from actual violence, not just gym equipment. His gaze moved from me to Maya, taking in her curly blonde hair plastered to her small face, the way her chest rose and fell in exhausted sleep against my shoulder, the worn gray of both our clothes. Sit, he said. Not a question. A command. But his voice was soft, almost gentle, with just a trace of an accent that made the words sound like music. But you're not leaving after. I froze, my grip tightening on Maya. I don't. Sit. He gestured to the booth across from him with one elegant hand. She's asleep. She needs to lie down properly. I should have walked away. Should have recognized the danger in that voice, in the expensive suit, in the way he looked at us like he'd already decided something I hadn't been consulted about. But Maya whimpered in her sleep, and my arms were shaking, and I was so tired of carrying everything alone. I slid into the booth, arranging Maya so her head rested in my lap. She curled immediately into my body, seeking warmth. The man closed his ledger with precise movements and raised one hand. The tired waitress appeared instantly, moving faster than I'd seen her move since we walked in, her expression suddenly alert. "Hot chocolate for the girl," he said, his eyes still on Maya. "Extra marshmallows. And soup, something warm. Chicken noodle if you have it. Toast, butter on the side." His gaze shifted to me. "Coffee. And whatever she wants to eat." "Right away, Mr. Moretti," the waitress said, already backing toward the kitchen. "Wait, I didn't order anything," I started, heat flooding my face. "I can't. She's cold," he said simply. "And hungry." It wasn't a question. The truth of it burned. Yes, my daughter was cold and hungry because I couldn't keep the lights on. Couldn't afford a taxi in a storm. Couldn't afford anything beyond survival most weeks. "Thank you," I managed, the words scraping my throat. "But I can pay. Already handled." He leaned back slightly, studying me with an intensity that made my pulse quicken. Not threatening, exactly, but absolute, like he was used to being obeyed without question. "You were working tonight." The gallery opening across the... How did he know that? I glanced down at myself, saw my camera bag peeking out beside the booth, my equipment visible through the open zipper. Professional logo probably facing out. Yes. Photographer. Freelance. I tried to sit straighter, suddenly aware of how I must look. Soaked sweater hanging off my frame, hair falling from its ponytail, no makeup, dark circles I couldn't hide. "I'm Ariana. This is Maya." "Lorenzo," he replied, his voice wrapping around the syllables like a caress. "But people call me Enzo." The name meant nothing to me, but the way he said it felt like a test. Like he was waiting to see if I'd recognize it, react to it. I didn't. I was too focused on Maya, on the way her breathing was evening out now that she was warm, on the knot in my chest that was slowly loosening. The waitress returned with frightening speed, setting down a mug of hot chocolate so loaded with marshmallows they threatened to spill over. A bowl of soup followed, steam rising and fogging the window. A plate of toast. A coffee mug for me. "When she wakes," Enzo said softly, nodding toward Maya. "Feed her first." It wasn't a suggestion. "I don't understand why you're..." I started. "You have nowhere to go tonight." Again, not a question. His dark eyes missed nothing, reading my situation like words on a page. "No car outside. No umbrella. No one coming to pick you up." My phone sat on the table between us, dark and silent. No calls returned. No solutions appearing. Just the weather app confirming my nightmare, and the bank app one was too afraid to open. Enzo watched me calculate, saw every desperate thought cross my face. Something shifted in his expression when his gaze dropped to my camera bag, something that looked almost like recognition. "This fell out of your bag earlier," he said, reaching into his jacket and pulling out one of my business cards. The edges were worn, the headshot I'd taken myself 3 years ago staring back at me. "Outside the gallery. I was walking past when you were loading your equipment. I didn't remember dropping it, but my bag had been open, everything half falling out in my rush to leave before they locked the doors." "Thank you," I said, reaching for it. He didn't hand it over. Instead, he set it on the table between us, his fingers resting beside it. I've been looking for a photographer. I blinked. For what? Personal project. I need someone who can capture real moments, not staged corporate nonsense. He paused, his eyes holding mine. I looked at your website. Your work is good, honest. You see people, not just subjects. He'd looked me up. Based on a dropped business card. Within an hour. That's very flattering, I said carefully, but I'm sure there are more established photographers. I don't want established. I want someone who needs the work. His voice was blunt now, cutting through my pride like a knife. Someone who won't ask questions about who they're photographing or where. The words hung in the air between us, loaded with meaning I couldn't quite grasp. I don't understand, I said slowly. You will. Enzo leaned forward, his presence suddenly overwhelming despite the table between us. I'm offering you a job, Ariana. Good money. Regular work. A place to stay while you do it. His eyes dropped to Maya, something softening in his expression. A safe place for both of you. My heart hammered against my ribs. I don't even know you. No, he agreed. But you're out of options, and we both know it. He tilted his head slightly. I'm not asking you to decide tonight. I'm asking you to stay. Eat. Rest. And in the morning, when you're not running on empty, I'll explain everything. And if I say no, then you walk out of here, and I never bother you again. His voice was steady, honest. But your daughter deserves better than sleeping in a diner booth because her mother is too stubborn to accept help when it's offered. The words hit like a slap, not because they were cruel, but because they were true. Maya stirred in my lap, and I looked down at her peaceful face, at the way her small hand clutched my sweater, even in sleep, at everything I was failing to give her. When I looked up again, Enzo was watching me with those dark, knowing eyes. One night, I heard myself say, we'll stay one night, and then we talk. Something that might have been satisfaction crossed his face. One night, he agreed. But somehow, I knew it was a lie we were both telling ourselves. Outside, the rain continued to fall, and somewhere in the back of my mind, a voice whispered that I'd just made a choice I could never take back. Before we dive deeper into this story, take a moment to hit that like button if you love suspenseful, emotional stories that keep you on the edge of your seat. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next thrilling chapter. We also want to hear from you. Drop a comment below and tell us where you're watching from. Whether it's your city, your country, or even just your favorite spot to watch these stories, we love connecting with our global audience. Now let's get back to the story and see just how far courage can take someone when danger is closing in. I woke to sunlight, so bright it hurt. For a disorienting moment, I didn't know where I was. The ceiling above me was too high, painted a soft cream that probably cost more per square foot than my monthly rent. The sheets against my skin were Egyptian cotton. I knew because I could actually feel the difference. The bed was enormous, the kind you saw in magazines, not real life. Then it all came rushing back. The diner. Enzo. The drive through rain-soaked streets to this place. Maya asleep against my chest the whole time. Maya. I sat up so fast the room spun. The space beside me in the bed was empty, still warm. Panic clawed up my throat as I stumbled out from under covers I didn't remember getting under, my feet hitting marble floors. Maya. My voice cracked. I ran toward the door, yanking it open onto a hallway that belonged in a palace. Curved staircase, crystal chandelier, artwork that was probably original. My heart hammered as I followed the sound of laughter, Maya's laughter, down the stairs. The kitchen was twice the size of our entire apartment. And there, at a marble island, sat my daughter on a high stool, swinging her legs and giggling at a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and flour on her apron. In front of Maya was a plate of pancakes shaped like teddy bears, fresh strawberries arranged like smiles. Mama. Maya's face lit up when she saw me. Maria made me bears, with chocolate chips for eyes. The woman, Maria, smiled warmly. Good morning, Miss Brooks. I hope you slept well. Coffee. I couldn't speak. Could only stare at my daughter, clean and fed and happy, in this impossible place. She's fine. The voice came from behind me, low and calm. She's been up for an hour. Maria's been keeping her entertained. I turned to find Enzo leaning against the doorframe, immaculately dressed in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than my car, the car I no longer had. His dark hair was perfectly styled, his beard trimmed, every inch of him radiating controlled power. He looked like he'd stepped out of a magazine. Meanwhile, I was still wearing yesterday's clothes, wrinkled and slept in. You took her out of my room, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. You were exhausted. She woke at 6. I didn't see the point in disturbing you. He pushed off the doorframe, moving into the kitchen with the grace of a predator. Sit. We need to talk about your new position. Position. The job I mentioned last night. He poured coffee into a delicate china cup, handed it to me. The cup alone probably cost more than my camera. Photographer. For my businesses. I took the coffee automatically, my mind still trying to catch up. What businesses? Hotels. Restaurants. Properties I'm renovating. Enzo leaned against the counter, those dark eyes fixed on me. I need someone to capture them properly. Marketing materials, website content. You'd be documenting my legitimate holdings. Legitimate? I repeated slowly. Something flickered in his expression. I own 14 hotels across the city, 6 restaurants, 3 event venues. All legal, all profitable, all in need of better visual representation than the corporate garbage my previous photographer produced. He tilted his head slightly. Your portfolio showed me you understand how to make spaces feel alive. I need that. How much would you pay? $5,000 a week, plus room and board for you and Maya. Medical insurance. Equipment allowance. He said it like it was nothing, like he was offering me spare change instead of more money than I'd made in the last 6 months combined. I couldn't finish. Too much. Impossible. Suspicious. Fair compensation for quality work. Enzo finished. You'd have flexible hours. Maya would be safe here while you work. Maria's daughter runs a small private school program with other staff children. Maya would have friends, structure, education. I looked at my daughter, chocolate smeared on her chin, laughing at something Maria was showing her on a tablet. She looked more relaxed than I'd seen her in months. My things, I started, then stopped. My apartment. Your belongings were retrieved last night. They're in the guest house. Enzo's voice remained neutral, but I felt the weight of those words. Retrieved. Not asked about. Not discussed. You went into my apartment? I sent people. Your landlord was cooperative once proper compensation was offered. He straightened slightly. You were being evicted today anyway. This way, nothing was lost. The coffee cup trembled in my hand. How much do you know about me? Enough. His eyes held mine unflinching. Enough to know you need this, Ariana. And enough to know I can trust you. Trust me with what? With seeing my world and keeping quiet about it. He moved closer, not threatening, just present. Overwhelming. There are security personnel on the grounds. You and Maya will be protected at all times. In exchange, you work for me, you stay here, and you don't ask questions about things that don't concern the photography. It was a cage. A beautiful, warm, safe cage. And Maya was eating pancakes shaped like bears. What if I say no? Enzo's expression didn't change. Then I'll have my driver take you anywhere you want to go, with enough money to start over. No strings." He paused. "But we both know you have nowhere to go." The truth of it stung worse than the words. "Mama, look." Maya held up a drawing Maria had helped her make. "It's us. In our new house." Our new house. Like she'd already decided. Like she already felt safe here with this dangerous man and his staff and his impossible offer. I looked at Enzo, at the way he was watching Maya with something almost tender in those dark eyes. At the security guard, I could see through the window, walking the perimeter. At the golden light filtering through windows that probably had bulletproof glass. 1 month. I heard myself say, "Trial basis. If it doesn't work, you're free to leave anytime." Enzo extended his hand. "Do we have an agreement?" I thought about the eviction notice, the empty bank account, the gallery that still hadn't paid me, the way Maya was smiling. I shook his hand. His grip was warm, firm, and somehow felt like I'd just signed something far more binding than an employment contract. "Good," Enzo said softly. "Welcome home, Mariana." Outside, beyond the manicured gardens, I could see the high walls surrounding the estate, keeping danger out, or keeping us in. 3 weeks passed in a blur of luxury hotels and restaurant openings, my camera capturing marble lobbies and candlelit tables. Enzo had been right. I was good at this. I found the moments that mattered. A chef's concentration as he plated dishes, late afternoon light through hotel windows, the way spaces could feel alive even when empty. He watched my work with an intensity that made my skin prickle. Sometimes I'd look up from my camera to find those dark eyes studying me, something unreadable in his expression. "You see things others miss," he'd said once, reviewing shots on my laptop. His shoulder had brushed mine, and I'd stopped breathing. The charity gala was at one of his hotels. Crystal chandeliers, women in evening gowns, men in tuxedos worth more than cars. Enzo had asked me to capture the atmosphere, so I wove through the crowd with my camera, invisible as always. That's when I saw them. Through a partially open door off the main ballroom, Enzo and 3 men in a private room. The men's faces were hard, dangerous. One had a scar running down his jaw. They weren't here for charity. Envelopes exchanged hands across a table. Thick envelopes. Enzo's expression was cold, controlled, nothing like the man who read bedtime stories to Maya in Italian. My finger pressed the shutter on instinct. Click. The sound felt deafening. Enzo's eyes snapped to mine through the doorway. For a heartbeat, we stared at each other. Then the door closed. I left the gala early, my hands shaking. Back at the estate, after Maya was asleep, I finally did what I should have done weeks ago. I searched his name on my phone. Lorenzo Moretti, alleged head of the Moretti crime family, suspected involvement in racketeering, money laundering, third-generation Mafia boss. The articles went on and on. Photos of him leaving courtrooms, always in expensive suits, always surrounded by lawyers. Federal investigations, rival families, violence. I was living with the monster. I'd let my daughter call him by his first name. I'd smiled at him over breakfast. I had to run. I moved on autopilot, throwing clothes into my old duffel bag, gathering Maya's things as quietly as possible. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. The security guard outside wouldn't stop us. Would he? Enzo had said we could leave anytime, but I'd seen that room. Those men. The envelopes. I knew too much. Maya stirred when I lifted her, but didn't wake. I wrapped her in a blanket and headed for the stairs, my bag cutting into my shoulder. Through the dark house, past the kitchen, toward the side door that led to the garage. The estate gates loomed ahead in the darkness. Rain had started, light but steady. My old instincts kicked in, the ones from 3 years of running from Derek. Don't think. Just move. Just survive. I was 20 feet from the gate when headlights caught me. A car pulled up, blocking my path. The driver's door opened. Enzo stepped out into the rain. He wasn't wearing a jacket, just a white shirt and dark pants, like he'd dressed in a hurry. His hair was wet within seconds, but he didn't seem to notice. He just looked at me holding Maya, at the duffel bag, at the fear that must have been written across my face. Going somewhere? His voice was quiet, almost gentle. Let us go. My voice cracked.
Please.
We won't say anything. I'll delete the photos. Just let us. Ariana. He took a step forward. I took one back. He stopped immediately, hands visible at his sides. Non-threatening. Do you know why I hired you? Because I was desperate enough not to ask questions. Because I knew exactly who you were. His words cut through the rain. Ariana Marie Brooks. Maiden name Harper. Married Derek Collins 5 years ago. Filed for divorce 3 years ago. Restraining order filed 18 months ago. Renewed 4 times. Changed apartments 6 times. Changed Maya's daycare 3 times. Always running. My blood went cold. How do you? I know everything, Ariana. Where he works. Where he lives. Every time he's violated that restraining order that the police did nothing about. Every time you had to pack up your daughter in the middle of the night and run. Enzo's voice remained calm, but something dangerous flickered in his eyes. I know he put you in the hospital once. I know Maya saw it. Tears burned my throat. Then you know I can't stay here. I can't put her in danger again. You're a monster, he finished.
Yes.
But I'm not your monster. He moved closer, and this time I didn't back away.
Couldn't.
You think I'm the one you need to run from? I'm the one who'll make sure nothing ever touches you again. Not Derek. Not anyone. You're a criminal. Yes. No denial. No excuses. And because of what I am, I can do things the police won't. Can protect you in ways the law can't.
His jaw tightened.
That man has been looking for you for 3 years, Ariana. He found your address 2 weeks ago. The world tilted.
What?
He hasn't shown up because my people have been watching him.
Discouraging him.
Making sure he understands that touching you, or Maya, means dying slowly. Enzo's voice dropped lower. You've been safe here not despite what I am. You've been safe because of it. Maya stirred against my shoulder, and I held her tighter. You saw something tonight you weren't supposed to see, Enzo continued. And now you're scared. I understand. But running puts you right back where you were, alone, unprotected, waiting for him to find you again. He held my gaze.
Stay.
Let me keep you safe. That's all I'm asking. Why? The word tore out of me. Why do you even care? Something raw crossed his face. Because I know what it's like to be powerless. And I'll be damned if I let anyone make you feel that way again. The rain fell harder. Maya's breathing was steady against my chest. And Enzo stood there, soaked and dangerous, and offering me the one thing I'd never had. Protection. I looked at the gates, at freedom, at the old life of constant fear. Then I looked at him. If anything happens to her, it won't. His voice was iron.
A vow.
I promise you, Ariana. Nothing will touch either of you. Not while I'm breathing. Slowly, I walked back toward the car. Toward the monster who'd just promised to be my shield. Enzo opened the door for us, and as I slid into the warmth, I realized I'd just made my choice. I wasn't running anymore. The voicemail came on a Tuesday morning while Maya was at her lessons with Maria's daughter. I almost didn't check my phone. The old number I kept active just in case, the one only 2 people had. My friend Sarah. And Derek, from before I'd changed everything. One new voicemail. My hands went numb as I pressed play. Hey, Ari. His voice was exactly as I remembered.
Calm.
Reasonable. The voice he used right before things got bad. Been a while, hasn't it? Saw some interesting photos online. Fancy hotel opening. Photographer credited as a Brooks. You always did have an eye for that artsy stuff.
A pause.
The sound of him breathing. Nice place you're working at. Real nice. But you can't hide our daughter from me forever. I have rights. We'll talk soon. The phone slipped from my fingers, clattering on the marble floor. I couldn't breathe.
Couldn't think.
Just felt the old terror flooding back, 3 years of running collapsing into this single moment. He'd found us. He always found us. I was moving before I realized it, pulling my duffel bag from the closet, throwing clothes inside with shaking hands. We had to go.
Now.
Before he showed up. Before he took Maya. Before Ariana. I spun around to find Enzo in the doorway, still in his shirt and slacks from whatever meeting he'd been in. His eyes went immediately to the bag, then to my face. Whatever he saw there made his expression shift into something dangerous. What happened? I couldn't answer. Just picked up my phone from the floor with trembling fingers and handed it to him. Press play. I watched Enzo's face as Derek's voice filled the room. Watched the way his jaw tightened, the way his eyes went flat and cold. When the message ended, he played it again. Then a third time, his expression growing more lethal with each repetition. He found us, I whispered. He knows where we are. We have to. Sit down. You don't understand. Derek doesn't make empty threats. He'll come here. He'll take her. Ariana.
Sit.
Enzo's voice was gentle but absolute. When I didn't move, he guided me to the bed, his hands steady on my shoulders.
Breathe.
Maya is safe. There are 4 armed guards between her and the outside world. He can't get to her. You don't know him. He's a ghost, Enzo said quietly. And ghosts don't hurt the living. He pulled out his phone, stepping toward the window. When he spoke, it was in rapid Italian, his voice sharp and commanding. I caught a few words: nome, indirizzo, adesso.
Name. Address. Now.
The call lasted less than a minute. What did you? Handling it. He made another call, this one in English. I need a full workup on Derek Collins. Everything. Employment, financials, every place he's been in the last 72 hours. And I need eyes on him.
Now.
A pause. Yes, now. I don't care if you have to wake people up. I sat on the bed, hugging myself, listening to him make call after call. Each one calm, controlled, but underneath I could hear the cold fury, the promise of violence. Enzo. He held up one finger, pressed the phone to his ear. Marco, it's me. I have a problem that needs to disappear. Permanently. His eyes found mine.
No.
Not that permanently. Just convincingly. Make sure he understands what happens if he ever speaks her name again. My heart was racing. What are you doing? Keeping my promise. He ended the call, then knelt in front of me, his hands covering mine. They were warm, steady, everything I wasn't. Derek Collins is about to have a very bad day. And then he's going to have a very clear understanding of what happens if he comes anywhere near you or Maya again. You can't just. I can. I am. His voice was absolute. You've been running from him for 3 years because the system failed you. Restraining orders he violated. Police reports that went nowhere. A legal system that protected him more than you. Enzo's grip tightened slightly. I'm not the system, Ariana. And I don't fail. Over the next 6 hours, I watched Derek's life unravel from the safety of Enzo's study. His Facebook went silent mid-post. His phone number disconnected. The automated message said it was no longer in service. His workplace called me, asking if I had his emergency contact information because he'd apparently quit without notice. And then, delivered by courier, a legal document so thick I needed both hands to hold it. Permanent restraining order. Federal level. Any violation meant immediate arrest, no questions. Filed by a law firm whose partners' names I recognized from news articles about Supreme Court cases. How did you? Money and motivation. Enzo set a glass of water in front of me.
Drink.
You're pale. Where is he? Does it matter? Enzo. He was quiet for a moment, studying me. He's alive. Unharmed, physically. But he's been made to understand that you and Maya are under protection he can't touch. That if he ever contacts you again, speaks your name, even thinks about you too hard. Enzo's voice dropped. He'll wish he'd never been born. You're sure he won't? Ariana. He tilted my face up to meet his eyes. He's a ghost now. The kind that haunts himself, not you. He'll never touch you again. That's a promise, not a threat. I wanted to feel guilty. Wanted to feel something other than this overwhelming relief. But all I could think was, it's over. 3 years of running. Of fear. Of checking over my shoulder every second. Over. Thank you, I whispered. You don't thank me for this. Enzo's thumb brushed across my cheek, catching a tear I hadn't realized had fallen. You should never have had to be this afraid in the first place. That night, for the first time in 3 years, I slept without dreaming of Derek finding us. And when I woke to Maya's laughter drifting through the window, I realized the ghost that had been haunting me was finally gone. Life without fear felt strange, like wearing clothes that didn't quite fit, except in reverse. Suddenly, everything had room to breathe. Maya bloomed first. Within days of Derek's disappearance from our lives, she stopped looking over her shoulder, stopped asking if we had to leave soon, started drawing pictures of the estate and calling it home, without the question mark that used to follow the word. Enzo noticed everything. He was gone often, business that I'd learned not to ask about, but when he was home, he gravitated toward Maya like she was magnetic north. I'd find them in unexpected places. The garden, where he taught her the Italian names for flowers. The kitchen, where Maria pretended not to notice him sneaking Maya extra cookies. The library, where he'd let her climb the rolling ladder while he spotted her, one hand always ready to catch. The gifts started small. A set of colored pencils after he'd seen her drawing with crayons. A book about constellations when she'd mentioned liking stars. But then one evening, he came home carrying a package almost as big as Maya herself. What's that? She'd run to him immediately. No hesitation, no fear.
Just pure joy at seeing him.
Open it and see, Piccolina. He'd set the box down carefully, and I watched from the doorway as Maya tore into the wrapping paper. A telescope. Not a toy one, but real, professional quality, the kind I could never have afforded. You said you wanted to see the stars up close, Enzo said quietly, kneeling beside her. Now you can. Maya had thrown her arms around his neck, and I saw something crack in his expression. Something vulnerable and raw that he quickly hid, but not before I caught it. Thank you, Enzo. Maya was already trying to extend the telescope, her small hands struggling with the mechanism.
Here.
He guided her fingers, patient and gentle. Like this. Tonight, if it's clear, we'll set it up properly. I'll show you how to find Jupiter. I should have walked away. Should have given them their moment. But I stood frozen, watching this dangerous man, this criminal, treat my daughter like she was made of starlight and promises. A week later, he brought home a stuffed wolf. gray and fierce-looking, with amber glass eyes. "Why a wolf?" I'd asked, unable to help myself. Enzo had looked at Maya, who was already naming it. "Because wolves protect their pack. And because she's brave enough to deserve one." His eyes met mine over Maya's head. Brave like her mother. The words shouldn't have affected me, but they did. Bedtime became sacred. Enzo would appear at Maya's door around 8, still in his work clothes, sometimes with blood on his knuckles he thought I didn't notice. He'd wash his hands, roll up his sleeves, and settle into the chair beside her bed with whatever book she'd chosen. But increasingly, he didn't read the English words. He'd translate as he went, his voice soft and musical, teaching her Italian through fairy tales. "Lupo," he'd say, pointing to the picture. "Wolf." "Lupo," Maya would repeat, her pronunciation terrible but earnest.
Brava.
"Good girl." And he'd continue the story, weaving English and Italian together until Maya's eyes grew heavy. I started lingering in the hallway, listening, telling myself I was just making sure Maya was settling down. But really, I was drawn to the gentleness in his voice, the patience. The way he'd tuck the blanket around her shoulders and press a kiss to her forehead before leaving, like it was the most natural thing in the world. Like we were his to care for. Something inside me was cracking. I felt it happening and couldn't stop it. I found myself in his library one night, unable to sleep. The room was enormous, walls lined floor to ceiling with books. I'd been drawn to the photography section, first editions of Ansel Adams, Henri Cartier-Bresson, Dorothea Lange. Books that cost thousands of dollars, sitting on shelves like they were ordinary. I was flipping through a Cartier-Bresson collection, lost in the decisive moments he'd captured, when I heard the door open behind me. Couldn't sleep? I turned to find Enzo in the doorway, jacket discarded, tie loosened. It was past midnight. I should have been in bed. I didn't mean to intrude. I gestured helplessly at the books. "Your collection is incredible." It was my father's, and his father's before him. Enzo moved into the room, his presence filling the space. Strange, isn't it? Men who built their lives on violence, collecting books about capturing beauty. Maybe they needed the balance. Maybe they needed the reminder that beauty exists at all. He stopped beside me, close enough that I could smell his cologne, something dark and expensive. "What were you looking at?" I showed him the page, a photograph of a man jumping over a puddle, perfectly suspended in midair. The decisive moment. Cartier-Bresson's theory that there's this perfect instant where everything aligns, where form and content and geometry all come together. Do you believe in that? Perfect moments. I used to. I closed the book gently. Before I learned that moments pass, that nothing perfect lasts. "Your mother taught you photography." It wasn't a question. Somehow he knew. Of course he knew.
Yes.
"She had that vintage camera, the one you saw that first night in the diner." My throat tightened. "She died when I was 19. Car accident." The camera was the only thing of hers I kept when I had to sell everything to pay for the funeral. And Derek wanted me to sell it. Said it was impractical, that we needed the money more than I needed some old camera. I laughed bitterly.
He was probably right.
But it was the only thing I had left of her. The only proof that I'd once had dreams bigger than survival. Enzo was quiet for a long moment, his dark eyes studying me with that intensity that made me feel transparent. "What were your dreams?" "Before." "Stupid ones." I wanted to be a real photographer. Not weddings and corporate events, but art. I wanted to capture moments that mattered, to show people beauty in places they'd stopped looking for it. I shook my head. Naive. Not naive. Human. He reached past me, pulling another book from the shelf, Diane Arbus. She photographed people's society, wanted to ignore, made the invisible impossible to look away from. That's not naive. That's necessary. You've studied these. My father believed that understanding beauty made you better at recognizing its absence. That a man who appreciated art would be more careful about what he destroyed. Enzo's voice held an edge. He was wrong, of course. He destroyed plenty, but the books remained. There was something in his tone. Old pain, carefully buried. I wanted to ask, but didn't. We all had ghosts. Why do you keep them? The books. Same reason you keep the camera. He met my eyes. Some connections are worth holding on to, even when they hurt. The air between us shifted. Suddenly the library felt smaller, the space separating us charged with something I couldn't name.
Didn't want to name.
Maya loves you, I said quietly. The way you are with her. She deserves someone who treats her like she matters. She's not yours to protect. Isn't she? Enzo's voice was soft, dangerous. She calls my name when she has nightmares. Asks me to read to her. Drew me into your family portrait last week. He stepped closer. At what point does protection become belonging, Ariana? My heart was hammering. You're a dangerous man. Yes. You've probably killed people. Yes. I should be terrified of you. You should be. His hand came up, fingers brushing my cheek so gently it might have been accidental. But you're not. Not anymore.
He was right.
Somewhere between the diner and this moment, my fear had transformed into something else entirely. Something that made my breath catch when he walked into a room. That made me hyper-aware of every accidental touch, every lingering look. This is a bad idea, I whispered. Terrible, he agreed. But he didn't move away. Neither did I. Maya needs stability. Not what? Not someone who would burn the world down to keep her safe. Enzo's thumb traced along my jaw. Not someone who reads to her in Italian and teaches her about stars? Not someone who sees you, Ariana? Really sees you. The photographer, the mother, the woman who's stronger than she believes. Enzo, I know this is complicated. I know what I am, what I do. I'm not asking for anything. His voice dropped lower, intimate. I'm just telling you the truth. You and Maya, you've become the most important thing in my life. And that terrifies me more than any enemy ever has. The confession hung between us, raw and honest. I should have stepped back, should have maintained distance, should have remembered all the reasons this was impossible. Instead, I leaned into his touch. She drew you into our family portrait, I said softly. I know. She calls you when she has nightmares. I know. And I stopped, the words catching. I don't know when it happened. When you stopped being the scary man from the diner and became
Home, he finished. Yes.
That's exactly what he'd become. Home. Safety. The first person I wanted to see in the morning and the last voice I wanted to hear at night. This is insane. I breathed. Completely. But Enzo smiled. A real smile. Rare and devastating. But when has your life ever been sane, Ariana? Fair point. We stood there in the lamplight, surrounded by books about capturing perfect moments, and I realized that Cartier-Bresson had been right. There were decisive moments. Instants where everything aligned. This was one of them. I just had no idea if I was brave enough to take it. The garden at sunset was my favorite place on the entire estate. I discovered it 3 weeks ago, tucked behind the main house where the manicured lawns gave way to something wilder, climbing roses over stone archways, a fountain that probably dated back a century, light filtering through old trees in a way that made everything look like a painting. It was Thursday evening. Maya was having a sleepover with Sophia, Maria's daughter, in the staff quarters, the first time she'd spent a night away from me since we'd arrived. Maria had promised to call if Maya needed me, but I knew she wouldn't. My daughter had bloomed here, growing confident and happy in ways that made my chest ache. I was alone with my camera and the fading light, capturing the way shadows fell across stone paths, the way rose petals caught the last rays of sun. These photos weren't for Enzo's hotels or restaurants. These were mine. The kind of work I used to dream about before life became about survival. You're wasting the golden hour on flowers. I turned to find Enzo approaching down the path, jacket discarded, sleeves rolled up to his elbows. He looked different like this, less the dangerous businessman, more just a man. His dark hair was slightly mussed, probably from running his hands through it during whatever meeting had kept him occupied all day. The golden hour is perfect for flowers, I said, raising my camera to capture him before I could think better of it.
Click.
He was backlit by the setting sun, all sharp angles and shadows. Beautiful, in a way that made my breath catch. You just took my picture. It wasn't a question. Reflex. Sorry. Don't be. He moved closer, hands in his pockets. Can I see? I hesitated, then turned the camera screen toward him. The image was good, better than good. I'd caught something in his expression, some unguarded moment that made him look almost vulnerable. You make me look. He trailed off. Human. I offered quietly. His eyes met mine, something flickering in their depths. Yes. We stood there in the fading light, the air between us suddenly charged with something I'd been trying to ignore for weeks. The way he looked at me sometimes. The way my pulse quickened when he entered a room. The careful distance we'd both been maintaining. Show me your real work, Enzo said softly. Not the hotel lobbies or restaurant interiors. The photos you take for yourself. Why? Because I want to see how you see the world. I should have said no. Should have made some excuse about the light fading, about needing to check on Maya. But instead, I found myself sitting on the stone bench by the fountain, scrolling through my camera's memory card to the personal folder. Enzo sat beside me, close enough that I could feel his warmth, smell his cologne, something expensive and understated that I'd come to associate with safety. The first image was Maya asleep in our old apartment, morning light streaming through threadbare curtains. I'd captured the piece on her face, the way her small hand curled under her cheek. She looks like you, Enzo said quietly. I scrolled. More images appeared, light through cracked windows creating patterns on walls. A fire escape garden someone had created with mismatched pots. Rain on glass. A stranger's hands, weathered and working, at a bus stop. You see beauty in everything, Enzo observed. Even in places most people would only see poverty. Beauty exists everywhere. You just have to look for it. Show me more. I scrolled through images from our previous life, the one before this mansion, before him. Maya playing with shadows on pavement. An elderly neighbor's smile. Graffiti on a subway wall that looked like art. Moments I'd stolen between work and survival, when I'd still believed photography could be more than just a paycheck. This one, Enzo said, stopping me on an image of broken glass catching sunlight. Why did you photograph this? Because even broken things can be beautiful. Because light finds cracks and makes them glow. I looked at him. Because sometimes the broken things are the most honest. Something shifted in his expression. He reached out slowly, giving me time to pull away, and took the camera from my hands. Set it carefully on the bench beside us. You see the world differently, he said, his voice rough. Like it's worth saving. Isn't it? I stopped believing that a long time ago. His hand came up, fingertips barely touching my jaw. Until you. My heart was hammering. Enzo, you make me think that maybe there's more than just survival, more than just power and control and making sure my enemies stay afraid. His thumb brushed across my cheekbone, the touch sending electricity down my spine. You and Maya, you've made this house feel like something other than a fortress. I should have pulled away, should have remembered all the reasons this was complicated, dangerous, impossible. But I couldn't move, could only feel his hand on my face, the way he was looking at me like I was something precious. I'm scared, I whispered. Of me.
Of this.
Of feeling safe. Every time I let myself feel safe, it gets taken away. Ariana. He leaned closer, his forehead nearly touching mine. I know you're terrified. I know you've been hurt. But I'm not Derek. I'm not going to take this safety away from you. You're a dangerous man, Enzo. Yes. No denial. Just truth. But not to you. Never to you. When his lips touched mine, it felt inevitable. Like every moment since the diner had been leading here, to this garden, to this sunset, to this kiss that unmade me completely. He kissed me like he was drowning and I was air. Like he'd been waiting years for permission to touch me this way. His hand slid into my hair, cradling the back of my head, while his other arm wrapped around my waist, pulling me closer. I kissed him back with everything I'd been holding in, weeks of watching him with Maya, of feeling safe for the first time in years, of lying awake at night thinking about him in ways I shouldn't. My hands found his chest, feeling his heart racing as fast as mine. When we finally broke apart, both breathless, his eyes were darker than I'd ever seen them. I've wanted to do that since the diner, he admitted, his voice raw. Since you looked at me with those exhausted eyes and asked if you could sit. Since I saw you holding Maya like, this changes everything, I whispered. Yes. He pulled me closer, tucking me against his chest. I could hear his heartbeat, steady and strong. But it doesn't have to be complicated. You're safe here. Maya is safe. And if you want this, want me, then we figure it out together. What if your world comes for us? What if? It won't. His arms tightened around me. I won't let anything happen to either of you. Not my enemies, not the life I live, nothing. He tilted my face up to look at him. Even if it costs me everything, Ariana. You and Maya are worth more than any of it. The sun had set completely now, the garden bathed in twilight. Somewhere in the house, lights were coming on. But here, in this moment, it felt like we were the only two people in the world. I don't know how to do this, I admitted. I don't know how to let someone in. Then we learned together. Enzo kissed my forehead, soft and gentle. No rush. No pressure. Just let me keep you safe. Let me be here for you and Maya. The rest we figure out as we go. I looked up at him, this dangerous, powerful man who read bedtime stories in Italian and bought my daughter telescopes and had just kissed me like I was something precious, and realized I'd already let him in. Somewhere between the diner and this moment, between fear and safety, I'd fallen for him. Okay, I whispered. Okay, we figure out together. His smile was rare and beautiful, transforming his whole face. He kissed me again, slower this time, sweeter. A promise instead of a question. When we finally walked back to the house, his hand warm in mine, I realized the garden wasn't my favorite place anymore. Anywhere with him, the park had been Maya's idea. Please, Mama? Enzo said there's a big playground with swings and everything. And we can get ice cream from the truck. I'd looked at Enzo across the breakfast table, uncertain. We'd been at the estate for 2 months now, and except for my photography assignments, we rarely left the grounds. The walls, the security, the controlled environment, it had become our new normal. It's safe, Enzo had said, reading my hesitation. Broad daylight. Public space. We'll have protection. So here we were on a perfect Saturday afternoon, watching Maya race toward the swings with the kind of unself-conscious joy I hadn't seen in her before we came here. Before Enzo. Higher, Enzo. Push me higher, she called out, her curly blonde hair flying behind her. Enzo stood behind the swing, his expensive casual clothes, dark jeans, and a fitted black Henley, completely at odds with the suburban park setting. But he was smiling, really smiling, as he pushed Maya's swing with careful control. Any higher, and you'll touch the clouds, Piccola. I want to touch the clouds. I sat on a nearby bench, my camera around my neck, capturing this moment. Enzo had been right weeks ago. I did see things differently. Through my lens, I saw a little girl who finally felt safe enough to just be a child. And I saw a dangerous man transformed by the trust of that child into something almost gentle. Two bodyguards, Carlo and James, stood at a distance, close enough to intervene but far enough to give us space. Normal families didn't need armed escorts to visit a playground. But we weren't a normal family. Whatever we were. After the swings, Enzo bought Maya ice cream from a cheerful vendor with a bright yellow cart. Chocolate chip, her favorite. She sat on the bench between us, legs swinging, attacking the cone with singular focus. "You've got ice cream on your nose, Bella," Enzo said, his voice warm with amusement. Maya giggled, trying to wipe it off and somehow making it worse. Enzo produced a handkerchief. Of course he had a handkerchief, and cleaned her face with such gentleness it made my chest ache. This was dangerous in a completely different way than I'd expected. Not the violence of his world, but this. Watching my daughter fall in love with a man who read her bedtime stories in Italian and remembered she liked her toast cut diagonally. Watching myself fall for someone who'd made ghosts disappear and promised nothing would ever hurt us again. "Mama, watch this." Maya had finished her ice cream and was demonstrating some elaborate climbing technique on the playground equipment. I raised my camera, but that's when Enzo's phone rang. He glanced at the screen, his expression shifting slightly. "I need to take this."
Work.
2 minutes. "We're fine," I assured him. He squeezed my shoulder briefly before walking toward the tree line, phone to his ear. Carlo remained near Maya. James scanned the perimeter, his posture alert but relaxed. Everything was fine. Then the van appeared. It came fast, too fast, black with tinted windows, jumping the curb and roaring across the grass. James shouted something, reaching for his jacket, but the van's side door was already sliding open. Men in masks. 4 of them. Moving with military precision. Everything happened in seconds, but felt like hours. Gunfire cracked the air. James went down first, then Carlo, both clutching their legs, neutralized but not dead. People screamed. Parents grabbed their children, running for cover. I was already moving, already running toward Maya, her name tearing from my throat. But they were faster. Hands grabbed her off the climbing structure. Maya's scream pierced through everything. "Hi," terrified, calling for me. "Maya." I reached them as they were dragging her toward the van. I didn't think. Just launched myself at the man holding my daughter, clawing at his face, his arms, anywhere I could reach. My fist connected with his jaw. He grunted but didn't let go. "Let her go. Let her." Something hard slammed into my ribs, an elbow, a fist, I couldn't tell. Pain exploded through my side. I fell, gasping, and watched through tears as they shoved Maya into the van. Her face in the window, palm pressed against the glass, mouth open in a scream I could still hear even as the van peeled away, tires screaming against pavement. No! I was crawling, trying to stand, trying to do something. Maya. Then Enzo was there, appearing from nowhere, his phone still in his hand. He took in the scene in an instant, his downed bodyguards, me on the ground, the van disappearing around the corner. I watched something die in his eyes. The warmth, the gentleness, the man who'd cleaned ice cream off Maya's nose gone. Replaced by something so cold and terrifying I almost didn't recognize him. Get up. His voice was lethal calm as he pulled me to my feet. Are you hurt? They took her. Enzo, they took. I know. He was already moving to Carlo, checking his wound, then James. Both men were conscious, bleeding but alive. Leg shots. Professional. They wanted you alive to see it. The words didn't make sense. Nothing made sense except Maya's scream still echoing in my ears. Enzo pulled out his phone, his movements controlled, precise. When he spoke, his voice could have cut glass. Find them. I don't care who you wake up, who you have to pay, what you have to do.
Find them.
Everyone moves. Now. He ended the call and immediately dialed another number. Marco, it's me. They took the girl. Yes. No, I don't know who yet, but I will. And when I do, he stopped, his jaw clenching. Pull everyone. Every asset we have. I want traffic cameras, security footage, witnesses, everything within a 5-mile radius of Riverside Park analyzed in the next hour. And find me who knew we'd be here today. The word who hit me like a slap. Someone had told them. Someone had known. Enzo made 3 more calls in rapid Italian, each one sharper than the last. Then he turned to me, and I saw blood on his suit, Carlo's blood from when he'd checked the wound. This is my fault, I whispered. If we hadn't come here, if I'd just said no. This is not your fault. His hands gripped my arms, forcing me to look at him. Someone set this up. Drew me away with that phone call, timed it perfectly. This was planned, Ariana. And whoever did it just made the last mistake of their life. Police sirens wailed in the distance, but Enzo was already pulling me toward a black SUV that had appeared. Where it came from, I didn't know. Didn't care. What are we doing? Getting you somewhere safe while I handle this. No. I yanked my arm free. I'm coming with you. That's my daughter, Enzo. Which is why you're going somewhere protected. His voice remained deadly calm. They wanted Maya to get to me, which means they'll come for you next to ensure I cooperate. I won't risk that. I don't care about the risk. Maya needs me thinking clearly, not worrying about you being their next target. He opened the SUV door. Please, Ariana. Let me do what I do. Let me bring her home. Tears streamed down my face. Every instinct screamed to fight, to do something, anything. But I saw the cold calculation in his eyes, the way he'd already shifted into someone else. Someone capable of finding her. Someone capable of destroying whoever had taken her. Promise me, I choked out. Promise me you'll bring her back. Enzo's hand cupped my face, and for just a second, I saw the man who'd pushed Maya on the swings. I promise you, Ariana. I will burn this city to the ground if I have to, but I will bring our girl home. Our girl. The words broke something in me. As the SUV pulled away with me inside, I watched through the rear window as Enzo stood in the park, phone to his ear again, surrounded by the chaos of arriving police and fleeing families. He looked like a man who'd just declared war. And somewhere in the city, someone had my daughter. They had no idea what they'd just unleashed. The call came at 2:47 p.m. on a Tuesday that had started with pancakes and Maya's laughter over chocolate chips shaped like smiley faces. Ariana's phone buzzed with a video message from an unknown number. Her hands knew to shake before her brain understood why. On the screen, Maya sat in a folding chair in a concrete room with water-stained walls, her small hands gripping the seat. She wasn't crying. That was somehow worse. She looked very small and very quiet, the way children get when they're too frightened to make noise. A man's voice, accented and amused, spoke off camera. Mr. Moretti, your little family is very sweet. I particularly like the girl. Such pretty curls. Ariana couldn't breathe, couldn't think past the static filling her head. You have something that belongs to the Calabrese family. Territories you took, contracts you stole, respect you demanded. We want it back. All of it. You have 24 hours to transfer.
She didn't hear the rest.
The phone was already falling from her hands as her knees hit the floor. Enzo found her there 60 seconds later. One of the security guards must have called him the instant her monitor showed distress. He picked up the phone, watched the video once with an expression that made Ariana's blood run cold, then pocketed it. How long ago? His voice was empty, flat. The voice of a man who had cut away every piece of himself except the part that knew how to kill.
The park.
She was on the swings. Marco was watching her while I got coffee from the cart. I turned around and she was just gone. Ariana's words came in gasps. It's been 20 minutes. 20 minutes and I didn't. Look at me. Enzo gripped her shoulders, forced her eyes to his. I will get her back. Do you understand? I will burn down this entire city if I have to, but I will bring Maya home. They want, the video said. I don't negotiate with people who touch my family. The possessiveness in the word Maya would have frightened her yesterday. Today it was the only thing keeping her from shattering completely. Where's Marco? Hospital. They beat him, broke his arm, and Enzo was already moving, phone to his ear, speaking rapid Italian that sounded like orders being given to soldiers. Within minutes, the cottage was full of men in dark suits, all armed, all moving with the precision of a military operation. A laptop appeared on the dining table. Someone, a thin man with glasses who looked more like an accountant than a criminal, was typing at inhuman speed, screens filling with surveillance footage, satellite imagery, phone records. The vehicle was a white panel van, stolen plates, the man reported. Picked her up at 2:31 p.m., headed east on Hamilton, lost visual at the industrial district. Find it. Enzo shrugged out of his jacket, rolled up his sleeves. Someone handed him a gun. He checked it with practiced ease, the movement so natural it was clear he'd done this 1,000 times. I want locations on every Calabrese property within 50 miles. Start with the ones they think I don't know about. Ariana watched him transform. The man who had gently taught Maya to ride a bike last week, who brought home pastries because he remembered they were her favorite, who read bedtime stories with different voices for each character. That man was gone. In his place was something cold and lethal, something that had always been there under the expensive suits and careful smiles. This was Lorenzo Moretti. Not Enzo. Not the man who had become her daughter's father in everything but name. This was the Mafia boss who had built an empire on calculated violence. I want to come. Her voice sounded stronger than she felt.
No.
He didn't even look at her, studying maps someone had spread across the table. She's my daughter. Which is exactly why you're staying here where it's safe. Now he did look at her, and the intensity in his eyes pinned her in place. I can't do what needs to be done if I'm worried about you. I can't be the monster this requires if you're watching. Enzo. He crossed to her in 2 strides, cupped her face with hands that would be covered in blood before the sun set. Trust me. One more time, Ariana. Trust me to bring our girl home. Our girl. She nodded because speaking was impossible. He pressed his lips to her forehead, a blessing or a goodbye, and then he was moving again, barking orders, strapping on body armor someone handed him. The thin man looked up from his laptop. Got it. Warehouse on Pier 19, registered to a shell company, but the utility records show recent activity. Heat signatures indicate approximately 8 people inside, one small enough to be a child. Enzo's expression didn't change, but something in the air shifted, became heavier, more dangerous. How many men do we have available? 15 on site, 20 more en route. I'm not waiting for 20 more. Enzo checked his watch. Maya's been gone for 43 minutes. Every second she's scared is a second too long.
We move now.
Full tactical gear. No prisoners unless they know something useful. Anyone who touched her doesn't leave that building breathing. The men moved like a machine, gearing up with military efficiency. Ariana watched them load into black SUVs, Enzo in the lead vehicle, and felt her heart leave her body to follow him into whatever hell was waiting at Pier 19. Sophia appeared beside her, wrapped warm arms around her shoulders. He'll bring her back. I've known Lorenzo since he was a boy. I've never seen him fail at something he's committed to. And that man is committed to your daughter. What if? Ariana couldn't finish. All the what-ifs were suffocating her. Then God help the Calabrese family, Sophia said quietly. Because Lorenzo won't. The warehouse at Pier 19 was exactly the kind of place where nightmares happened. Rusted metal siding, broken windows, the smell of salt water and industrial decay. Enzo studied it through binoculars from 3 buildings away, his team spread out around him in tactical positions. 8 men inside, confirmed. His second-in-command, Marcus, reported through the earpiece. 1 on the roof, 2 at the doors, 5 inside with the package. Package. The clinical terminology kept him focused. If he thought of Maya, really thought of her, scared and alone, he'd lose the cold precision this required. Snipers? Enzo asked. In position. Roof target and front door are clear shots. Back door is blocked by the angle. Then we go through the back door. Enzo checked his weapon one final time. On my count. Suppressed weapons only until we're inside. I want them confused about where we're coming from and how many we are. He closed his eyes for 1 second, saw Maya's face when she'd hugged him goodbye this morning, sticky with syrup and smelling like strawberry shampoo. She'd whispered, "Love you, Enzo," in his ear for the first time ever, and he'd carried those words like armor all day. He opened his eyes. Move. They hit the warehouse like a storm. The sniper took out the roof guard with a whisper of suppressed gunfire. Enzo's team breached the back door with a lockpick rather than explosives. Maya was inside, and he wouldn't risk her hearing loud noises, being more afraid than she already was. The first guard inside didn't even see them coming. Marcus took him down with a blade, quick and silent. The second guard managed to raise his weapon before Enzo put 2 rounds in his chest, the suppressor turning the shots into quiet coughs. Then they were in the main space, and silence was no longer an option. Federal agents, someone shouted, a lie, but it created the confusion they needed. Return fire erupted. Enzo moved through it like he was bulletproof, like death itself couldn't touch him because he had a child to save. He shot a man reaching for a phone. Shot another raising a weapon. Watched Marcus take down a third who tried to run. The warehouse filled with smoke from a grenade one of his men deployed, and in the chaos, Enzo followed the only thing that mattered, a door at the back marked with a padlock. A padlock on the outside, keeping someone in. He shot it off, kicked the door open, weapon raised. Maya was there, sitting in a folding chair in a room that smelled like mildew and fear, her hands gripping the seat, her face tear-stained but furious rather than broken. She was singing, her voice tiny and trembling but determined. Hush, little baby, don't you cry, Mama's gonna sing you a lullaby. The song Ariana sang to her every night. The song that meant safety and love and home. Enzo. Maya's voice cracked as she saw him, and she was launching herself off the chair, running to him with her arms outstretched. He caught her, scooped her up, held her against his chest so tightly he was probably hurting her, but he couldn't make himself ease up. She was real and warm and alive, and his hands were shaking as he pressed his face into her curly hair. "I've got you, Piccolina. I've got you. You're safe now." "I knew you'd come," she sobbed into his neck. "I told them you'd come, and they'd be sorry." Behind them, the warehouse was chaos, shouting, gunfire, the crash of something heavy falling. Enzo didn't care. He wrapped Maya in his jacket to cover her eyes, shield her from the violence, and carried her toward the exit. A man stepped into their path, older, silver-haired, expensive suit. Luca Calabrese himself. "Moretti, we can still negotiate." Enzo shot him without breaking stride. One round, center mass, the man crumpling like a puppet with cut strings. "No," Enzo said to the dying man. "We can't." Outside, the harbor air tasted like freedom. Sirens wailed in the distance, police, fire department, probably Coast Guard. Someone would have called about the gunfire. Enzo didn't care about that either. Marcus appeared at his side. "Building's clear. We lost no one. They lost everyone." "Burn it," Enzo ordered. "All of it. I want nothing left but ash." He was halfway to the SUV when the explosion bloomed behind them, orange and gold against the darkening sky. Maya flinched at the sound, burrowed deeper into his chest, and Enzo ran his hand over her hair, murmuring assurances in Italian. In the SUV, he finally loosened his grip enough to look at her properly. She had a bruise on her cheek. Someone had touched her hard enough to leave a mark, and he felt the cold rage settle deeper, colder. "Did they hurt you, sweetheart? Tell me the truth." "The man pushed me when I tried to run, and he said bad words." She touched the bruise gingerly. "But I didn't cry. Not even once. I was brave like you said." "You were so brave." His voice broke on the words. "So incredibly brave." She noticed the blood on his suit then, not his blood, but she didn't know that. Her small hand touched a dark stain on his shoulder. "Are you hurt?" "No, baby. I'm fine. Let's go home to Mama, okay? She's been very worried." Maya nodded, then settled against his chest, suddenly exhausted. By the time they pulled through the estate gates, she was asleep, one hand fisted in his shirt like she was afraid he'd disappear if she let go. Ariana was standing on the cottage steps, Sophia beside her. When she saw the SUV, she started running. Enzo stepped out carefully, cradling Maya, and Ariana crashed into them both, her hands frantically checking Maya for injuries, her sobs breaking the evening quiet. "She's okay," Enzo said. "Minor bruising. Scared but unharmed. She was singing when I found her, Ariana. Your lullaby." She was so brave. Ariana looked up at him, tears streaming, and saw the blood. Her hands fluttered toward him, checking for wounds. "Not mine," he said quietly. "Never mine." She understood then. Understood what he'd done, who he'd become to bring their daughter home. And instead of pulling away, she leaned into him harder, her arms around both him and Maya, holding what was left of her family. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you, thank you, thank you." "Always," he said. "For her, for you, always." Behind them, the sun set over the harbor where a warehouse burned to nothing, and Lorenzo Moretti held his family close, his hands still steady despite everything they'd done. Maya finally stopped shaking around midnight. She'd been bathed, checked over by a private doctor Enzo summoned, fed her favorite pasta with butter and Parmesan that she barely touched, and tucked into Ariana's bed with every light in the cottage blazing because she'd whimpered when someone tried to turn one off. Now she slept between them, Ariana on one side, Enzo on the other, both still dressed, lying on top of the covers. Neither had suggested Enzo leave. Neither could bear to have him further than arm's reach from the child who'd been ripped away from them just hours ago. Ariana watched Maya's chest rise and fall, counting breaths like prayer beads. Enzo's hand rested on Maya's back, feeling the same rhythm. Every few minutes, one of them would touch her hair, her cheek, her small hand, just to confirm she was real. The bruise on Maya's face had darkened to purple. Ariana couldn't stop looking at it, couldn't stop imagining the moment some man had been rough enough to mark her baby's perfect skin. "I should have been faster," Enzo said quietly. It was the first either of them had spoken in over an hour. "Should have found her in 4 hours instead of 5. You brought her home." Ariana's voice was raw from crying. "That's all that matters." "Is it?" He looked at her over Maya's sleeping form, and his eyes were terrible, haunted by whatever he'd done in that warehouse. 5 hours she was terrified. 5 hours she thought maybe no one was coming. But you did come. "I killed 11 men tonight, Ariana. 11. Some of them I shot in the back while they were running away. One of them begged. I killed him anyway." He said it flatly, watching for her reaction, waiting for her to finally see him clearly and recoil. She reached across Maya and took his hand, the one that had pulled the trigger, that had ended lives to save her daughter. His knuckles were split, bruised from something beyond just the raid. "Good," she said, and meant it. "I hope they died afraid. I hope they suffered." Something in his expression cracked, just slightly. Relief, maybe. Or recognition that she finally understood the world they lived in now, the mathematics of violence that kept Maya safe. A soft knock at the door made them both tense. Enzo was on his feet instantly, body between the door and the bed, hand moving toward the weapon he'd kept within reach. "Boss." The voice was muffled but familiar. "Dante, Enzo's head of security. We need to talk. Now." Enzo glanced back at Ariana. She nodded, already moving to fill the space he'd occupied beside Maya. He slipped out, closing the door with careful silence. Ariana heard voices in the living room, low, urgent. She couldn't make out words, but she heard the tone shift. Heard Enzo's voice drop into something cold and lethal. Then silence. Then footsteps, and Enzo was back in the doorway. He looked like he'd aged 10 years in 10 minutes. "I need to handle something." His voice was carefully controlled. Too controlled. "I'll be back before morning." "What happened?" He was quiet for a long moment, studying Maya's sleeping face. When he spoke, each word sounded like it cost him something vital. "The leak. We found where it came from." He paused. "Marco." Ariana's stomach dropped. Marco, Enzo's cousin, the man who'd been watching Maya at the park, who'd been beaten trying to protect her. Or so they'd thought. Marco was watching her. Enzo continued, still in that terrible flat voice. But he wasn't surprised when the van appeared. He fought just enough to sell the story, let them break his arm to make it convincing. Then he went to the hospital and played the loyal soldier who'd failed. "Why?" The word came out as a whisper. "Jealousy. Resentment. The Calabrese family promised him my position if he helped them destroy me." Enzo's laugh was bitter. He thought giving them Maya would break me, make me weak enough to take down. He gave them. Ariana couldn't finish. Couldn't process that someone Enzo trusted, someone who'd eaten at their table, who'd pushed Maya on the swings, had deliberately handed her over to monsters. His information led them to her. His timing gave them the window. Enzo looked at his hands, the bruised knuckles suddenly making sense. Dante found texts on his phone. Coordination.
Plans.
Marco knew exactly what would happen to her, and he did it anyway. Ariana thought she'd used up all her tears, but fresh ones came anyway. He called her Uncle Marco's little princess. She trusted him. I know. The words sounded like they were being dragged out of him. I brought him into our lives. Into your lives. This is my fault.
No.
This is his fault. His choice. She studied Enzo's face, saw the war happening behind his eyes. What are you going to do? He looked at her for a long moment. You don't want to know, Ariana. Trust me, you don't want this knowledge. She thought about Maya's bruised face, about 5 hours of terror, about a man who'd betrayed the people who loved him for money and power. You're right, she said quietly. I don't want to know, but I need you to promise me something. Anything. Promise me you'll come back. That whatever you do out there, you'll come home to us. He crossed to the bed, leaned down to kiss Maya's forehead with infinite gentleness. Then he cupped Ariana's face, his thumb brushing away her tears. I will always come back to you.
Both of you.
That's the only promise that matters. He kissed her too, soft and brief, and tasting like grief. I love you. I should have said it before, but I was afraid. I'm done being afraid. I love you too. The words felt inevitable, like something she'd been circling for months. Come home safe. He nodded and was gone, footsteps receding down the hall. She heard car doors, engines starting. Then silence. Ariana curled around Maya, breathed in the strawberry scent of her daughter's shampoo, and tried not to imagine what was happening in whatever dark place Enzo had taken his cousin. He returned at 4:47 a.m. Ariana heard the front door, heard water running in the guest bathroom. Washing away evidence, she realized with strange detachment. When he finally entered the bedroom, he'd changed clothes, but his knuckles were freshly bruised, already swelling. His eyes were the worst part.
Hollow.
Haunted. The eyes of a man who'd done something that couldn't be undone, even if it was necessary. It's done, he said simply. She didn't ask for details. Didn't ask if Marco had suffered, if he'd begged, if Enzo had shown mercy. She just shifted over, making room, and Enzo climbed onto the bed beside Maya, his hand immediately finding the child's back to feel her breathe. He was my cousin, Enzo whispered into the darkness. I taught him to shoot. We grew up together. And he gave her to them like she was nothing. I'm sorry. Ariana reached across Maya again, found Enzo's free hand. I'm sorry you had to do it. I'm not. His voice was fierce. I'd do it again. I'd do worse. Anyone who touches her, who touches you, they don't get to keep breathing. That's the rule now. That's the line. They lay like that until dawn started painting the windows gray. Maya stirred between them, small sounds of waking, and both of them tensed. Mama? Her voice was sleepy, confused. Why is Enzo here? Because we wanted to make sure you felt safe, baby. Ariana smoothed Maya's curls back from her forehead. How do you feel? Maya considered this seriously, the way she did important questions. Then she rolled toward Enzo, pressed her face into his shoulder. Safe now, she said simply. Enzo came for me. He promised he always would. Enzo's expression crumpled for just a second before he controlled it. That's right, Piccolina. I will always come for you. Always. Even if bad men take me again? Especially then. His voice was absolutely certain. But they won't. Because now everyone knows what happens if they try. Maya nodded like this made perfect sense, then yawned hugely. I'm hungry. Can we have pancakes? Just like that, life reasserted itself. Normal requests, normal routines, as if the world hadn't tilted on its axis yesterday. Pancakes sound perfect, Ariana said, trying to match Maya's matter-of-fact tone. Why don't you go wash up while I help Enzo with his hands? Maya looked at Enzo's bruised knuckles with interest. Did you punch the bad men? Yes. Good. She patted his arms solemnly. They deserved it. She climbed off the bed and padded toward the bathroom, humming the lullaby she'd sung to keep herself brave. When she was gone, Ariana sat up, really looking at Enzo for the first time in the morning light. He looked exhausted, years older than yesterday, carrying weight that would never fully lift. Let me see your hands. He held them out, and she examined the damage: split skin, bruised bones, one knuckle that looked like it might be fractured. She went to get the first aid kit, came back to find him staring at nothing. Marco begged. Enzo said suddenly, voice empty. At the end. Said he was sorry, said it was a mistake, said the Calabrese family had threatened his mother. All lies. Dante found bank records. Marco was paid $50,000, half up front. He did it for money. Ariana began cleaning his knuckles with antiseptic, careful around the worst damage. Did you believe him? When he said he was sorry?
No.
He was sorry he was caught. Sorry he'd failed. Not sorry for what he did to Maya. Enzo watched her work, his voice distant. I've killed before, Ariana. I've done terrible things. But I've never killed family. There are rules, lines even we don't cross. He crossed all of them. Then he deserved what he got. She wrapped gauze around his worst knuckle, secured it with tape. And you did what you had to do to keep us safe. You're not horrified. He said it like a question. I'm horrified by what he did. By his betrayal. By what Maya went through. She met his eyes. But I'm not horrified by you. I can't be. Not when you're the reason my daughter is alive and eating pancakes instead of. She couldn't finish.
Didn't need to.
I love her, Enzo said quietly. Like she's mine. Like I was there the day she was born. I would die for her, Ariana. I would kill the world for her. I know. She finished with his hands, set the first aid kit aside. And that's why we're staying. Something shifted in his expression. Hope, maybe. Or relief, so profound it looked like pain. Even now, even knowing what I am, what I've done. Especially now. She took his damaged hands gently in hers. You asked me to trust you one more time yesterday. But it's not one more time, Enzo. It's every time. It's always. From the bathroom, Maya called out that she couldn't find her favorite brush. Ariana stood to help, but Enzo caught her hand. Thank you, he said, for not looking at me like I'm a monster. You are a monster, she said gently. But you're our monster. And that makes all the difference. She went to help Maya, leaving Enzo sitting on the bed with bandaged hands and something that might have been peace beginning to settle in his haunted eyes. By the time they all gathered in the kitchen for pancakes, Sophia was already cooking, humming an old Italian song. Maya climbed onto a stool, swinging her legs and chattering about wanting chocolate chips in her pancakes. Enzo sat beside her, his damaged hand resting on her back, and for a moment, just one perfect moment, they looked like what they were becoming. A family forged in fire, held together by love and violence in equal measure, and somehow more real than anything Ariana had ever known. The estate had settled into something like normalcy. 2 weeks since the warehouse, since Marco's betrayal, since Maya had been stolen and returned. 2 weeks of quiet mornings and peaceful nights, of Maya's laughter echoing through the garden, of Enzo teaching her to identify birds while Ariana photographed them both in the golden afternoon light. 2 weeks of pretending the other shoe wouldn't drop. Ariana had been editing photos in her study when Sophia found her, expression carefully neutral in the way that meant something was wrong. Lorenzo would like to speak with you. In the library. The library. Not the kitchen where they had breakfast, not the garden where they spent evenings. The library, with its heavy furniture and serious atmosphere, where Enzo conducted business. Her stomach dropped. Is Maya with the tutor, working on her letters? She's fine. Sophia's hand squeezed her shoulder gently. But you should go now. Ariana found Enzo standing by the window, backlit by late afternoon sun, hands in his pockets. He'd positioned himself deliberately, giving her space, not crowding. When he turned, his expression was carefully controlled, but she'd learned to read the tension in his shoulders, the tightness around his eyes. Sit down, please. He gestured to the leather sofa. I'd rather stand. Her heart was racing now. Whatever you're about to say, just say it. He nodded, like he'd expected that. I've been thinking about the night we met. The diner, the rain. You asked if you could sit, and I said you weren't leaving after.
He paused.
I took your choice away, Ariana. I decided for you, and I've been deciding for you ever since. Enzo, let me finish. Please. He crossed to his desk, picked up a folder, the kind lawyers use, thick with documents. The Calabrese family is finished. My enemies know what happens when they touch what's mine. You and Maya are as safe as anyone can be in this world. Safer, probably, than most. He held out the folder, and she took it with numb fingers. Open it. Inside were documents. A trust fund in Maya's name, enough to pay for any college in the country. Deed to an apartment in Seattle, 3 bedrooms, already furnished, in a safe neighborhood with good schools. New identity papers for both of them, if they wanted to disappear completely. Bank accounts with enough money to live comfortably for years. What is this? But she already knew. Her throat was closing. Your exit strategy. His voice was rough, scraped raw. Everything you need to leave. To start over somewhere far from me, from this life, from the violence that comes with my world. You're asking me to leave? I'm giving you the choice I took away. He stayed across the room, like getting closer would tip the scales unfairly. That night in the diner, you were desperate. You had nowhere to go, no options. I used that. I saw what I wanted and I took it, convinced myself it was rescue, when it was really capture. That's not. It is. His certainty cut through her protest. I put you in a gilded cage and called it safety. I made you dependent on me, made it impossible for you to say no because what were your alternatives? Poverty? Running? Your ex-husband. He laughed, bitter. I'm not better than him, Ariana. I'm just richer and more dangerous. The words hit like a slap. Don't you dare compare yourself to Marcus. Don't you dare. Why not? We both controlled you. We both made decisions about your life without asking. We both used violence. To hurt me or to protect me? She stepped toward him now, angry. Marcus hit me because I spoke too loud, looked at someone too long, burned dinner. You destroyed a warehouse full of men to save my daughter. Those are not the same thing. Aren't they? Both end in violence. Both trap you. His hands were fists at his sides. Maya saw me covered in blood, Ariana. She knows what I am. What I do. Is that really the man you want raising her? She feels safer with you than she ever did with me alone. Ariana said quietly. Do you know what she told me yesterday? She said she doesn't have nightmares anymore because she knows you're here. She knows the bad men can't get her because you won't let them. Something cracked in his expression. That's too much pressure on a child. Too much faith in a man who loves her, who would burn down the world for her. Ariana set the folder down on the desk without looking at it again. Why are you doing this? Really? Because if you wanted us gone, you'd have arranged it without all this drama. You're testing something. He was quiet for a long moment, and when he spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. I need to know you're choosing to stay. Not because you're trapped, not because you're afraid, not because you think you owe me. I need to know that if you stay, it's because this is where you want to be. And if I take this? She gestured to the folder. If I pack up Maya tomorrow and move to Seattle with a new name? Then I'll know I did one decent thing. I'll know I gave you the life you should have had, safe, stable, free. His smile was devastating. And I'll spend the rest of mine missing you both. But you wouldn't follow us. Wouldn't check up on us.
No.
Clean break. That's what the documents guarantee. Legally binding agreements that I'll have no contact, no surveillance, no involvement in your lives beyond the financial support. Ariana studied him. This complicated, violent, tender man who'd crashed into her life like a storm and somehow become her harbor. You'd really let us go? Yes. The word cost him everything, even though it would destroy you. Especially because it would destroy me. He finally moved closer, and she could see the exhaustion in his face, the weight of offering her this choice. You deserve better than a life measured in security protocols and backup plans. Maya deserves better than a father figure who teaches her that problems are solved with guns. She also deserves someone who shows up, who keeps promises, who loves her unconditionally. Ariana's voice strengthened. Marcus was her biological father, and he terrified her. You're not related by blood, and she runs to you when she's scared. Biology doesn't make a parent, Enzo. Showing up does. I'm a killer, Ariana. I've ended lives. I'll end more. That's what I am. You're also the man who brings home pastries because you remember they're Maya's favorite, who reads her 3 bedtime stories instead of 1 because she asks nicely, who learned to braid hair from YouTube videos so I could sleep in one morning. She stepped close enough to touch him now, watching him hold himself rigid. You're both things, the killer and the father, and I'm choosing both. You shouldn't. Stop telling me what I should do. Her anger was back, hot and clarifying. You wanted to give me a choice?
Fine.
I'm making it. We're staying. Ariana. We're staying because Maya is happy here. Because she has stability and safety and a man who loves her like she's his own. Because I'm happy here with you in this complicated, dangerous, beautiful life we're building. You could have normal, he said desperately. A safe man with a safe job. Someone who comes home with briefcases instead of blood on his clothes. I don't want normal. I want you. She took his face in her hands, felt the tension in his jaw. I want early mornings when you're already working but you stop to kiss my forehead. I want evenings in the garden watching you teach Maya about constellations. I want the way you look at me like I'm something precious. I want all of it, Enzo. The good and the terrible and everything in between. What if I can't keep you safe? His voice broke. What if next time, then we face it together, as a family? She pulled his head down until their foreheads touched. I love you.
Completely.
Knowing exactly what you are and what you do. I love you anyway, maybe because of it. His arms came around her finally, crushing her against his chest, and she felt the shudder go through him. I love you, he said into her hair. God, I love you both so much it terrifies me.
Good.
Be terrified. But don't push us away because of it. They stood like that for a long moment, holding each other in the library's fading light. Then Maya's voice carried from the hallway, talking to Sophia about something, her tone bright and happy. Mama? Enzo? Where are you? Ariana pulled back, wiping her eyes, and saw Enzo do the same. They were both crying, she realized. both wrecked by the choice that was really no choice at all. Maya appeared in the doorway, took in their expressions with a child's intuitive understanding that something important had happened. "Why are you sad?" She crossed to them immediately, wrapping her small arms around both their legs. "Not sad, baby," Ariana said, voice thick. "Just talking about important things." "Are we leaving?" Maya's voice went small, scared. "Are we going away?" "No, Piccolina," Enzo said, scooping her up. "You're not going anywhere. I promise." "Good." Maya wrapped her arms around his neck, then reached out to pull Ariana closer until they were all tangled together. "I don't want to leave. This is home now." Ariana met Enzo's eyes over their daughter's curly head and saw everything she needed: love, commitment, the promise of tomorrow, and all the tomorrows after that. "Yes," she said softly. "This is home." Later, after Maya had been put to bed with her usual 3 stories and 4 glasses of water and 2 more trips to the bathroom that were really just excuses for extra hugs, Ariana stood in her study looking at the vintage Leica on the shelf. The camera that had survived everything: poverty, struggle, the rain-soaked night she'd met Enzo. The camera that represented who she'd been and who she was becoming. She picked it up, felt its familiar weight, and carried it to the library where Enzo was pretending to work, but really just staring at nothing. "Hey," she said from the doorway. He looked up, and his expression transformed when he saw her: relief and love, and something like wonder that she was still here, still his. "Hey yourself. I want to take a picture." "Of what?"
Us.
"Our family. The official start of everything we're choosing." He stood, crossed to her, studying her face like he was memorizing it. "You're sure? About all of this? About us?" "I'm sure." She raised the camera, framing him in the viewfinder. "Now smile. Or brood attractively. Either works." His laugh was startled and genuine, and she captured it. The moment his guard dropped, when he looked young and happy and free of the weight he usually carried. "Mama?" Maya's voice called from upstairs. "I can't sleep without saying good night again." They both smiled, the universal expression of parents whose child had mastered the art of bedtime delays. "We'll be right there," Ariana called back. But first, she set up the camera's timer, positioned them in front of the library's fireplace, and pulled Enzo close. Maya must have heard the movement because she appeared in the doorway, trailing her blanket, and immediately inserted herself between them. "Are you taking a picture? I want to be in it. That's the whole point, baby." Ariana lifted her onto Enzo's hip, wrapped her arms around them both. "Our first official family photo." The camera's red light blinked. 5 seconds. 4, 3. "Wait," Maya said. "Enzo has to smile too." "I am smiling," Enzo protested. "A real smile. Not your scary business smile." He looked down at her, and Ariana saw the moment it happened, the softening, the genuine joy breaking through his usual control. 2-1. The shutter clicked. Later, looking at the photo on her computer, Ariana knew she'd captured something true. Enzo with Maya in his arms and Ariana pressed against his side, all 3 of them looking at each other instead of the camera. A family caught in the moment of choosing each other, of deciding that complicated and dangerous was better than safe and alone. She printed it, framed it, and set it on the mantel where the morning sun would hit it first thing. Their beginning, their choice, their home. And that brings us to the end of today's chapter. A single moment, a simple question, and a dangerous man whose answer changed everything. If this story moved you, shocked you, or kept you hooked all the way through, then trust me, what's coming next will hit even harder. Their lives are only becoming more tangled, more emotional, and more intense from here. So before you go, Hit that like button if you're ready for the next twist. Subscribe so you never miss a new chapter. Turn on notifications because the next episode drops soon and you won't want to miss what he does next. Comment below and tell me where you're watching from and what part shocked you the most. I read every comment. Thank you for watching. Thank you for supporting these stories, and as always, stay tuned, stay safe, and stay ready because the next chapter is about to get even